What if I told you that a single institution could raise interest rates, crash markets, trigger recessions, or, create money out of nothing? No elections, no armies, no headlines, just decisions behind closed doors. So the question is, who controls the world's money? For decades, people have believed that central banks aren't really public institutions. Instead, there's a persistent suspicion that these powerful organizations operate with a level of secrecy that goes far beyond what's visible to the public eye. The idea that central banks are independent is often met with skepticism, as many wonder who truly benefits from their decisions and policies. Some believe they're controlled by shadowy elites, wealthy families whose names rarely appear in the headlines, secret alliances forged in private, or perhaps even ancient institutions that have quietly shaped the world's financial systems for centuries. These theories suggest that a small, powerful group pulls the strings, making decisions that affect billions, all while remaining hidden from public scrutiny. Why do these suspicions persist? Because money equals power. Whoever controls the flow of money can influence economies, governments, and even the daily lives of ordinary people. The connection between wealth and influence is undeniable, and it's easy to imagine that those with the most to gain would want to keep their grip on the system as tight as possible. And power rarely feels transparent. When governments fall, when inflation spikes, or when national debt explodes, the public is left searching for answers. Economic crises can feel sudden and overwhelming, leaving people anxious and uncertain about the future. In these moments, the actions of central banks and financial authorities come under intense scrutiny. People look for someone to blame. It's human nature to seek out a cause for hardship, especially when livelihoods are at stake. The complexity of global finance makes it difficult to pinpoint responsibility, so suspicion often falls on those who seem to operate behind closed doors. And, well, mystery always attracts a story. When information is scarce and decisions are made in secret, imaginations run wild. The less we know, the more we fill in the blanks with our own theories, sometimes reasonable, sometimes fantastical. In the end, the hidden hand remains a powerful symbol of our collective uncertainty about who really holds the reins of power. Let's slow down for a moment and really look at what central banks are, beyond the headlines, the rumors, and the conspiracy theories. In the heart of every major economy, you'll find a central bank quietly shaping the financial landscape. But what do they actually do, and why do they matter so much? First, let's clear up a common misconception. A central bank is not some kind of global government pulling the strings behind the scenes. It doesn't rule the world, and it certainly doesn't answer to a shadowy, secret council. Instead, central banks are institutions created by countries to manage their own economies. They're powerful, yes, but their power is focused and specific. Central banks like the Federal Reserve in the United States, the European Central Bank in the Eurozone, or the Bank of England in the UK have a few core jobs. They work to control inflation, making sure your money doesn't lose value too quickly. They regulate commercial banks, setting rules to keep the financial system stable. They stabilize national currencies so that prices don't swing wildly from day to day. And when financial crises hit, they act as lenders of last resort, providing emergency funds to keep the economy afloat. The structure of central banks varies. Some, like the Bank of England, are owned by the government. Others, like the Federal Reserve, are designed to be semi-independent. This independence is intentional. It helps shield central banks from short-term political pressures so they can make tough decisions that are best for the economy in the long run, not just for the next election cycle. But independence doesn't mean secrecy. Central banks are some of the most scrutinized institutions in the world. Their leaders are public figures, their decisions are announced in press conferences, and their policies are published for everyone to see. Meeting minutes, financial reports, and policy statements are all made available to the public, so that citizens, investors, and governments can understand what's happening and why. So, if central banks are so open, where do the darker stories and suspicions come from? Why do some people believe they're hiding something? The answer lies in their power, their complexity, and the natural human tendency to be wary of what we don't fully understand. Throughout history, powerful families have undeniably played a significant role in shaping the world of finance, especially during the 18th and 19th centuries. Banking dynasties like the Rothschilds, Morgans, and Rockefellers rose to prominence, their names echoing through the halls of power and commerce. These families built vast fortunes, established private banks, and often influenced the direction of entire economies. Their reach extended across continents, and their decisions could sway markets and even impact the fate of nations. Private capital, wielded by a select few, helped shape empires and redraw borders. The influence of these dynasties was real, and their legacy is still felt in the financial systems we know today. But here's the crucial distinction. While influence is undeniable, it is not the same as absolute control. History is not a grand conspiracy, and the actions of a few do not dictate the fate of all. The world of finance is complex, shaped by countless factors, decisions, and unpredictable events. To reduce it to a simple story of puppet masters pulling every string is to ignore the messy reality of economics and human ambition. Over time, however, these complex financial systems and the people behind them became easy targets for suspicion. The intricate web of global finance was gradually simplified in the public imagination, turning real individuals and institutions into larger-than-life villains. Nuance faded away. Names like Rothschild, Morgan, and Rockefeller stopped being just names. They became symbols, shorthand for hidden power and secret agendas. Institutions that once represented innovation and progress were recast as shadowy forces, and their histories were woven into myths that often bore little resemblance to reality. And eventually, the narrative shifted. Instead of asking how these complex systems actually functioned, the story became about who must be to blame. The search for understanding was replaced by the urge to accuse. The birth of the elite control narrative marked a turning point, one where curiosity gave way to suspicion, and the quest for truth was overshadowed by the need for a simple villain. Conspiracy narratives thrive because they offer simple answers to complex problems, clear enemies in a confusing world, and a feeling of hidden knowledge. Believing someone is secretly in control can feel safer than accepting that systems are messy, flawed, and often incompetent. It's easier to imagine a mastermind than randomness, bureaucracy, or human error. Here's the uncomfortable truth. No single family, no religion, no secret group controls the world's central banks, but power does exist. It exists in political lobbying, regulatory capture, corporate influence, global debt structures, and information asymmetry. Power is systemic, not secret. And that makes it harder to fight because there's no single villain. So maybe the real question isn't who secretly controls the world, but why do we need to believe someone does? Because when we stop questioning myths, we finally start understanding reality, and reality is far more complex and far more dangerous than any conspiracy.